alone. Encouragement can help us to build relationships with others and to feel like we are part of something bigger than ourselves. And I want you to know today, my brothers and sisters, you are connected to something that is bigger than you and me. We are connected to the Holy One of Israel, and we are connected to his promises. And his promises are assured by divine ability. Romans 4:21 says, and being fully persuaded that what he had promised, he was able also to perform. Do you know whatever God promised, he can deliver? But there is a stipulation. You got to be connected, and you got to be a part of the family. Yes, when you are connected, with the blood of Jesus Christ over your life, and you have accepted Jesus as your personal Savior, you are now my brothers and sisters, because I'm telling you, hey, I'm connected. You know, that old saying out there in the world sometime, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And if you know Jesus as your personal Savior, and you are rooted and grounded in Christ, 2 Corinthians 1:20 says, for all the promises of God in him are yea, and in him, amen, unto the glory of God. So I pray that you are connected today, my brothers and sisters, because without him, we can do nothing. So I need you to remember this. There's a way out of your mess, and it's JESUS.
Where can you buy a brand new Nissan with a lifetime warranty? Kingston Pike. Hey folks, Gerald Anderson with Ted Russell Nissan. You heard it right. Every new Ted Russell Nissan comes with a lifetime warranty. And that's a long, long time. Ted Russell Nissan on Kingston Pike.
Good morning and welcome to AM 1380 WYSH and Ask Your Neighbor. Ask Your Neighbor can also be heard and seen on our website, WYSHradio.com. And if you are in Anderson, Rome, or Morgan County and have Comcast cable, you can watch Ask Your Neighbor on BBB TV Channel 12. Ask Your Neighbor is the program where you call in and do just that. Ask Your Neighbor. Do you have a comment? Do you have a problem? Or do you have a question? Then call in and ask your neighbor. 865-457-1380 or toll free at 877-711-4005. And for those of you that might be listening or watching on the internet, you can email from our website, WYSHradio.com. Just click on the Contact Us button and email your questions. Now sit back and listen as listeners throughout East Tennessee and the entire world answer your questions on Ask Your Neighbor on BBB TV 12 and AM 1380 WYSH.
Well, good morning, everybody. How are you this morning? I hope you're having a fantastic Monday, as Mondays go. What about, I was talking about it on Trading Time. What about that game? The Vols. Dragons ran up against a team that we expected to be just as good as they were, Powell. Another hard test coming up this weekend. Friday night, the Oak Ridge Wildcats at the Wildcat Den. It gets no easier, does it? No, it sure doesn't. With that said, we'll have the play-by-play for you here, beginning at 6:30. Get everything running smoothly. So we took the kids. I'm telling you, I'm getting ready to tell you a story. You're going to think I'm joking with you, but I'm not. So we decided we wanted to do something, a little loud, fun for the kids, just instead of just having them at the house for the weekend and, what have you. Not like we don't have enough to do at the house, but anyway. So first thing is we get up Saturday morning, and I discovered that, again, we're going to leave early, so it's like 5:30. But I discovered that our pool filter, the filter, big sand filter. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Evidently, it has a leak. It looks as if the entire filter is splitting at the seam. That's what it looks like. Wasn't really anything we could do about it. Turned it off. I tried to put some Flex Seal on it. Slowed it down, still got a leak. I said, okay, we'll deal with that when we get back. No problem. We leave, we go. We drive to Cincinnati. Kids are good. Everything's fine. We rented a cabin there. There's an RV park that is adjacent right next to the Kings Island Park, right? Close. So we got there. I don't know. We ended up not leaving till, I don't know. We got there, let's say, 11 o'clock, give or take. And you can't check into the cabin that we had got to spend the night until 4. So we said, that's fine. So we parked and rode the trolley from the RV park there where we were over to Kings Island. Well, we noticed as we came in that it said that the park, I saw this earlier in the week, that the park was closed, right? And Tracy said, no, they're not closed. Look, I bought tickets. Here are the tickets. And she had them on her phone. Yeah. Saturday the 21st, you know, there are our tickets there. Okay. So then we drive by as we're pulling in, and it shows again. Up on the sign, it said something like Toyota Day or something. I can't remember. So we get into the trolley or whatever it is, a little bus is going to take us over there. And the guy says, so y'all work for Toyota? I said, no, we don't. And he said, oh, well, you know, the park is closed. Toyota has rented the park for the day, and no one else is allowed. I said, no, we didn't know that. We've got tickets right here that say, you know, today. They didn't say anything about it when we bought the tickets. So we said, well, let's go see. So we go to the park. And sure enough, they're like, nope. You know, you can't come in because Toyota has rented the park for the day. And we said, all right, well, we've just drove 5 hours. And here are the tickets that you sold us. So the guy looked at it and he said, hang on a second, let me get the manager over here. So he got a manager. The manager looks at it. The manager says, come here, let me take you over to guest services and see if we can figure something out. Okay, so here we go over to guest services. So guest services says, this is what we'll do. You have to buy 5 new tickets here today. I said, why? They said, well, with Toyota renting the park, the tickets were more expensive than normal because Toyota was providing drinks and food and all of that to all of their employees, and we would be in there. So it said, you got to buy 5 new tickets. They said, but we will reimburse you for these first 5 that you bought online. And we said, all right, so we made the decision. Okay, we'll do that. Well, then they said, hang on, we can't reimburse you for these 5 because you bought them from the campground. You made this deal with the campground. It was a package. You know, got the cabin for a night, 5 tickets to Kings Island. And she said, but you know, I'm sure the campground will, you know, work with you on it. You're not going to use them. And so they said basically the campground is a third party to us, and you'll just have to take it up with them, but you shouldn't have any problems. So we went ahead and bought the new tickets, and we went in. And the kids had fun. It was okay, you know. I rode I can't remember what it was called, but a fun roller coaster, but it was super hot. It was 94 degrees, sunshine. And because it was rented, they had all but one bathroom closed, right? And there were still thousands of people there. I'd say probably half of the food places where you could get stuff to eat was closed. The ones that were open, most of them, though, you could get your pop and water or whatever for free, but because there were very few of them open, there were long, long lines, right? Okay. Long lines, that was going to happen regardless, so that wasn't too bad, but we stayed until it got time to check into our room, into our cabin. So the guy that drove the shuttle bus, super nice. He gave us more information than anybody, but so he gave us his cell number. He said, when y'all are ready to come back, just call me and I'll come right over and get you. So we called him and we get back on. He takes us back over to the campground to where we're going to check in now. So we get there, and there's a line of people there to check in. They only had one person working, so that's okay. But it took about 45 minutes. Okay. The kids are tired, and they're hot, and we've been over there, and we'd driven 5 hours, and they've been to the park in the sunshine. Anyway, they were grousy, but okay. Still okay. So we get our keys. Well, first they go through the process and give us our keys, and he says, oh, wait a minute, I need those back. I've got to put you in a different cabin. And we said, why? Well, the guy that's in the cabin you rented didn't check out. We said, what? He said he didn't check out. He's on a golf thing, and he has not come in to check out. So we can't let you in because he hasn't checked out. So we're going to put you in a different cabin. Okay, that's fine. So we get to the cabin. He gives us the keys. We drive down a little path. We park. We get out, and the electronic keys won't work to open the cabin. We had two of them, so we tried. No. So Tracy says, I'll run back up there and get more. Hang on. So me and the kids were sitting on the porch. She drives up there, and she comes back with two more. We try them. Nope, won't work. So I said, I'll go up there. Let me go up there. So I drove up there, and I said, hey, these keys are not working, okay? He said, okay, let me give you some more. I don't know what's wrong. So he gives us some more. He says, now, if they don't work this time, call us, and I'll send someone down there. Okay. I drive back down and go, they don't work. So when we try to call them, it continues to tell us that they're busy with other customers to call back later. Okay, so I told James David, I said, James David, take these keys and just go up there and tell him that they're not working, and that he said to call them, and they'd send maintenance guy down. So James David gets up there, and they're like, no, we didn't say that. We don't know what you're talking about. So he calls me, says, Dad, they don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, just tell them the keys don't work. I said, never mind. I drove. So Tracy said, I'll go back up there. So Tracy goes back up there. They give her new keys. And the keys don't work. 4 times. By this time, I don't know, maybe an hour went by. 45 minutes in line, now another hour trying to get into the cabin. Maybe not that long, maybe another 45 minutes. I don't know. Seemed like an eternity. So finally, the guy in a golf cart comes by, and I said, "Hey, are your mates?" Yeah. Told him, he was like, "Hang on, your batteries are probably bad in the door." So he takes a master key, opens the cabin, changes the batteries. I mean, it took him, I don't know, just a few minutes. And we were in. And then when we got into the cabin, you know, I've got Jacob, James, David, the twin boys, and then Demi. And so we had rented a cabin that had a bedroom with full bed for Tracy and I. And then we had bunk beds for the boys, and then an upstairs loft bed for Demi. But when we got there, the cabin that they had was much, much smaller and just had a bed in the loft and a regular, well, it had 2 beds in the loft and a regular bed in the master bedroom. So we called and said, "Hey, you know, we got teenage kids. We need, you know, this is not adequate for them to sleep." Well, they didn't have anything else. And the guy that was golfing that hadn't checked out still was not back. So we didn't have any choice of what, you know, to do. So we made the best and some slept on the couch, and we figured it out. And so then we got situated, got them fed, and then Tracy and Demi and the boys, they go back to the park for, they had their Halloween haunt started. So they were all excited about that, and they go back for that. I stay and watch the game, watch the football game. James David was watching it on his phone till his phone died. Then he was aggravating his brother and his stepsister to death for them to text me and me to give him scores. But all is well. We spend the night, get up the next morning, and we go to see some of Tracy's family lives up there. So we went and visited with them for a little while, and that's all great. Went and ate and then started home. So we're driving home. Everything's fine. We get home. I'm cleaning out the car because we just got a vehicle, traded in the other one, traded in Tracy's, and got a Lincoln Navigator, bigger, so we could travel. So we're trying to keep all the junk out of it. So we're clean out everything out of the car. I'm in the bedroom. Now I hear Dad, and then Tracy's like, "Ron, come here." And I go upstairs to the upstairs bathroom, and there is water pouring through the ceiling onto the floor of the upstairs bathroom. And then Tracy says, downstairs, it's leaking on the ceiling too. The water was leaking from upstairs, running downstairs, and then leaking in the downstairs ceiling too. I'm like, okay. We leave with a leak in the pool, come home with a leak in the house. So I get up into the attic and see that the drainage pan on the air conditioner obviously had the line running outside, had stopped up somehow. And that water had filled the pan. Now, there's supposed to be a pump that pumps it out. Obviously, if the line was blocked, the pump couldn't pump it out. But so I turn it off. I'm literally in the attic. I'm dipping water out. James David is on a ladder. Dipping it to him, handing it to him. He's pouring it in a bucket, giving it back, trying to get it down under the top of the water pan so that it stops leaking into the floor. So I get that. Then I went and I drilled holes in the ceiling so the water that was puddled into the floor could drain and get out of the ceiling. got it stopped, but the ceiling is damaged, both of them, the upstairs and the downstairs. And so called John, my buddy John that lives upstairs. He came and looked at it and said, yeah, that's what it is. We're going to need to, we got to find the blockage in this pipe. Well, the pipe runs from my attic down to the end of the house and then runs down the side of the house. It's got like 5 corners in it. It comes out of the top, there's a corner, it comes down the pan, and there's another corner, and there's a corner that turns to go back, and there's a corner that goes down. 4 or 5 different corners. They couldn't figure out. They couldn't run something down it because of all the turns and corners. Or at least not last night. We didn't have anything. So the kids had to sleep upstairs last night with 0 air conditioning. Which, I don't know, when I got it wasn't too bad last night. We had fans, so we tried to get everybody fans. And everybody seemed okay. But they slept without, I don't know, it was probably 77 degrees up there. It was pretty warm, but yeah. If you walk outside summertime, 77 degrees, you go, oh, what a beautiful day. And try to sleep in it, though. It's not so beautiful. But everybody seemed to do okay. Got up. Got everybody to school. Tracy took them to school. I was here. And now they are there working on it. Going to let me know what the problem is. So, it was a okay weekend. So, we called the campground. Remember, they told us at Kings Island that they couldn't do anything. We had to call the campground. So we called the campground and said, hey, this is what's happened. And with the tickets. This is after we'd been through everything with the room and everything else and the keys. And the campground says, we can't reimburse you for that because we use a third party through Kings Island. I said, well, Kings Island said that they use you guys as a third party. They said, well, it's right. They do, but we use another third party for ticket fulfillment and such, and you're going to have to take it up with them. Well, by this time, Tracy and I are both getting a little upset. So we find out who the other company is. Well, Tracy does. I don't. She found out. And she called them. And thank goodness. And it took forever. She called them, and these people are trying to help us. And while they're trying to help us, her phone dies. And so, yeah, it's one of those things like you stay on hold forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, and finally you get the customer service rep on the phone, and you're right in the middle trying to get it fixed, and boop, phone dies. So we call back on my phone. And then they wanted us to email screenshots of the tickets and all the stuff. So we probably spent 2.5 hours of our trip, maybe, 2.5 at least, just dealing with the tickets and the reimbursement. But at the end of the day, now supposedly today, I don't know, they are supposed to call Tracy today and give us a reimbursement for those tickets. We will see. Otherwise, I bought 2 sets of tickets. But they said they're going to reimburse them. We'll take them at their word. Hopefully, they said it would take till today, and they would call us and they would reimburse them. So, but it was, all in all, I told Tracy, I said, nobody's losing their cool. We just take a deep breath. Everybody just take a deep breath, and we'll get through it. And everybody got to go to Kings Island, and they got to ride rides. And I think they said they went into like 5 or 6 different haunted houses, and there were characters and shows, and they all had a good time. I enjoyed it. I mean, it was fun. Like I said, I stayed home and watched the ball game when they went back. But it was fun. And that was my weekend. That's that. We got home last night. That's what was going on. And then they're there working on it today. But I can still say we had a good weekend, even though it was quite, that one of those problems, okay, you have that. But to have all of them 4 times back and forth with the keys. And then, oh, wait, I forgot to tell you. And then, when the kids and Tracy are getting ready to go back to the park for the Halloween kickoff, you had to be inside the park by 6. Your readmission tickets. When you leave the park, you had to get what they call a readmission ticket. The ticket that you had would not get you back in. You had to get a re-entry ticket. And they take your picture and give you a piece of paper, and there you go. So, first, I say, does everybody have their readmission ticket? Well, Jacob was like, huh? He had crumbled his up into little pieces. He just wadded it up in his pocket. Well, it was only about the size, maybe 2 matchbooks was the size of this readmission ticket on receipt paper. Like a receipt. It was like a receipt. Well, he had crumbled his all to pieces. Luckily, on the first ticket that they gave us, when we bought the additional tickets, the lady at the counter said, hey, it's a good idea to take a picture of this because you're taking stuff in and out of your pockets and you might lose it, and you have to have it if you're planning to come back tonight, because you have to have this ticket to get your re-entry ticket. Okay. So I said, well, Jacob, if they won't let you in with this crinkled up thing, just show them on your phone your first ticket. That'll get, maybe we can get you in. They did let him in, but they're getting ready to go, right? We're out on the porch, getting the kids loaded in the car. So I told Tracy, I said, here's the credit card so you guys can get something to eat while you're over there, et cetera, et cetera. So I pull a credit card out and I hand it to her, and my driver's license falls out, right? I'm standing on a porch, a wood slat porch. My driver's license. I couldn't do this in a trillion years if I tried. My driver's license falls perfectly through the slats of the steps of the porch, under the porch. The porch is completely closed in. Completely. Because I thought, okay, I'll just remove one of the side panels on the porch and crawl under it. Well, it wasn't. They were screwed in, and it was structurally sound. By this time, me and the maintenance guy are on first name basis. His name was Daryl. I call the front desk. Guess what? They're busy helping other people call back later. I'm serious. I'm not kidding. So I'm calling on Tracy's phone. So her phone is charged. Well, when I call on my phone, all right, because I go outside, when I call the exact same number on my phone, I'm getting like a home repair store in Cincinnati. Repair Pros. Now, I'm looking at the number on her phone. I call it on her phone, and it rings to the cabin front desk. I call it on my phone, and it's calling, Rebuilder Pros or whatever it is. Never seen anything like that in my entire life, ever. I have no idea what was going on. So I asked James David, I said, James David, look at these numbers. Make sure I'm putting this in right. So he did. He said, yeah, you're right. So I said, I'll tell you what. Try it on your phone, because Tracy and I have Verizon service. James David and Jacob have Xfinity service. So I said, try it on yours, see if it... So they tried it. When they'd call it, it would call the Remodel Pros or whoever. So I took my phone, I looked up the campground, found a different number, called it. And, of course, on my phone, too, they were busy helping other people. So I said, you all just go ahead and go. Go on. I'll figure out a way to get my license, or I'll go find Daryl. So I waited about 30 minutes and called again, finally got through. And the guy comes and says, I said, I bet this has never happened. He said, you would be surprised. And he said, we've had people drop money, credit cards. I said, well, this is just driver's license. So he had to go to the back of the cabin, remove, I don't know, I didn't go back there with him. He said, I got to go back here and take a panel off. And then belly crawl. And he wasn't a small guy, he was a big guy. All the way up to the front porch. And he slid it back, handed it to me, and I picked it up out of the crack. Came back out. So that was our trip. And still through all that adversity and nobody lost their cool, if you can believe that. There was no yelling, nobody hollered, no swearing or anything of that caliber. And then to walk in home, and there'd be water pouring out of the ceiling. I thought, well, this is it. This is where I'm going to lose my cool. But I didn't. Tracy didn't. And the kids all pitched in. You know, we're doing a bucket line. I dipped the bucket, give James David, pour the bucket, dip the water from the attic. And it was 150 degrees in the attic. I don't know how hot it was, but it was hot while I was up there. So I'm waiting here. I'll get a call or something, find out what they got to do to fix it. And John told me what they think they got it. They're going to cut it in sections to try and figure out where the blockage is in the sections. Talked about getting the air compressor. Doesn't know if we could get something up there that we could blow air through it to get it unplugged. But I had a good weekend. And I told Tracy, you know, at the end of the day, the kids had fun. They got to go to this extravagant Halloween thing. You know, Demi's 16, the boys are 14. And they'll remember it. And nothing was negative about it. Nobody lost their cool. Nobody got in arguments. No, you know, they'll remember it. It'll be a good memory. For them. For me and Tracy was spending a whole bunch of money and a whole bunch of aggravation, but for them, which is why we did it, hopefully it'll be a good memory. And then if you heard me on Trading Time, you heard I thought Trey was going to get to go. When I talked to him, see, I don't get to talk to him near as much as I would like to. He's at that age. He's out on his own, and I hear from him when he needs money. That's about all. But when I had talked to him before, you know, he'd come back from the North Carolina game. They had a ball, et cetera, et cetera. So you get to spend a night. No, we drive up, come back. And he said, but obviously we'll spend the night in Oklahoma. Well, then he found out they weren't going to take the whole band. They just take the pep band. The pep band is made up of your senior members of the Pride. And so he's a freshman, and he didn't get to go as a freshman. He was a little disappointed. But there'll be plenty of time for that. He'll get to travel. He will go to Arkansas. Or at least he thinks so. I guess they don't make that decision. And I don't know what constitutes, you know, I don't know what the decision-making process is in that, but there you go. So how was your weekend? Good, I hope.
You never know when life is going to throw you a curveball. Say you're involved in a traffic accident and you need some legal advice. Maybe you're released from your job for no reason. Or you suspect it's because you're getting older. You might know of someone whose marriage is on the rocks. Divorce is soon. Bad things happen to good people all the time. And Saturday mornings from 11 until noon, T. Scott Jones will be taking your calls and giving you legal advice. That's 11 until noon Saturday mornings, right here on WYSH.
Hey friends, it's Cougar from Rusty Wallace Nissan, and our end of summer sales event is going strong. 250 new Nissans and 150 pre-owned cars, all priced to save you money. Get $10,000 over book value for your trade, and I mean any trade, for the entire month. That's right, $10,000 over KBB, and make no payments till next year. And don't forget, all new Nissans always come with our no-charge 200,000-mile warranty. So come on over to Clinton Highway or shop in your $10,000 socks at RustyWallaceNissan.com.
It's football time in Tennessee, and Hammer's Dry Goods is stocked up with game day clothing for the entire family. We're also receiving new shipments of clothing every day for hiking, fishing, and outdoor fun. Ladies and girls' boutique fashions are 25% off Hammer's regularly low marked prices. Check out our huge inventory of ladies' boutique style shoes and boots at discount prices. Come and see our complete fall line of ladies' fashion goods and accessories from Simply Southern. Select from a special purchase of comfort color sweatshirts, long sleeve tees, all at Hammer's low prices, and choose from our largest inventory of Wrangler ATG hiking and work pants. We also have stacks upon stacks of famous brand men's boots for $99. Visit Hammer's Facebook and Instagram for daily deals and new items. Come and see us at our new location in the big brick building right across from Anderson County High School, or visit our other locations in Sevierville, Wartburg, Halls, and New Tazewell. If you miss a day, you miss a bargain at Hammer's.
Hello, Tennessee baby boomers. Oh, Leslie, what are you doing now? According to AARP, thousands of baby boomers are turning 65 every day this year. Yeah, and I'm one of them. I just received my Medicare card.
I'm a licensed insurance agent. Can I help you with your options?
Oh, Allison, I'm a licensed insurance agent, too.
I'm also a licensed insurance agent, and I've been on Medicare for years.
No, let me help you.
Linda, all kidding aside, have you reviewed your options? There are Medicare supplement insurance with prescription drug plans or Medicare Advantage plans.
This has actually been on my mind for months. I've been comparing the differences and weighing my options.
Just like we do with our clients.
So if you're a baby boomer or new to Medicare, please give us a call or stop by our office at 442 North Main Street in Clinton. Call us to set an appointment at 865-924-2273. That's 865-92-4-CARE, because we care about you.
Health Insurance Agency, Inc. is licensed as an insurance agency nationwide except in Massachusetts. Not all insurance licenses to sell all products. Service and products are availability may vary by state. Agent may be compensated based on enrollment. No obligation to enroll.
There we go. Okay. Yeehaw. Now let's get to the telephones. I got 3 or 4 lines going here this morning. Hey, good morning. Welcome to Ask Your Neighbor on WYSH.
I'm glad you survived that weekend.
Thank you. I am too. And
that was terrible, wasn't it?
It was. I'll tell you. It got to the point that we were just like, what's next? You know.
Hey, Ron, do you know anybody that has got the Tennessee football schedule?
You mean like a card you can carry?
A pamphlet telling when they play.
I think C&D had some. Desktop C&D Printing had some. But I don't know of anyone else. We'll find out. Somebody can call in and tell us. You needing one?
We do. Who do they play this Saturday?
We have a bye week this Saturday, and then we go to Arkansas.
Okay. If anybody knows anybody else, of course I can go to C&D. So
he had some. I'm almost positive Charlie had some.
All right. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, I hope he did. Let me see the schedule. On October 5th, Arkansas. October 12th is Florida. October 19th is Alabama. Then Kentucky, Mississippi State, Georgia, UTEP, Vanderbilt. Good morning. Welcome to Ask Your Neighbor.
Yeah, tell him Enrichment Credit Union got some.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye-bye. Enrichment Credit Union, ma'am. Good morning. Welcome to Ask Your Neighbor.
Ron, you sound like a total chaotic weekend.
Man, you would think that would rip it apart by the seams, especially when you got teenagers and they're hungry and they're hot, and you know what I mean. But no, everybody. Tell you the truth, I was surprised. Everybody kept.
I don't think I could have held it together.
Well, to say we were aggravated. Let's be truthful. We were aggravated, but for the circumstances, it turned out very well. I guess.
I figured there when you was running back and forth trying to get in the cabin, there one of the kids said, "I gotta go to the bathroom."
No, but that would have been, it would have been just par for the course had that happened.
I'm telling you,
they did not have very good customer service up there. Even at the park, I was not impressed with the customer service at the park when we were inside the guest services trying to work it out, right?
Uh-huh.
Tracy stepped out of the office to call the cabins because they had told us, hey, we can't give you your money back. You'll have to call the company. So she stepped out of the office to call them. Well, the kids were running in and out, going back and forth, talking to her. We were just outside of the park in the area where you go through the turnstiles. That's where their guest services was. And James David, he was walking back in, and this usher says to him, "What are you doing, son?" And he says, "I'm going to see my dad." And the guy says, "I said, what are you doing, son?" And he said, "I'm going in to talk to my dad." And the guy says, "Turn around when you talk to me. I can't understand what you're saying." And I said, "He said he's coming to see his dad." And he was like, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry." That was like they had that harsh tone all through the park, and then the people at the campground, just not really. They weren't real big on customer service.
Well, I know you guys, when you're dealing with telling how many people there, you got to have a certain demeanor about you and a whole lot of patience.
Yes.
I guess maybe they had a day like you had or something.
Maybe. Well, again, none of us lost our cool. None of us, everybody, we stayed polite and for the most part, didn't even get really. I mean, we got aggravated, but it almost became funny. It almost became like, all right, let's bet what happens next. But, and in all truthfulness, the park was not near as full as it normally would be. I'll give you for instance. When you looked at the app, they said the wait time for I can't remember what the roller coaster was called, but this big roller coaster was 45 minutes. So Tracy didn't want to ride it, so me and the kids decided we were going to ride it. But it wasn't. We got through in about 5 minutes. The park was not that full because it was just Toyota people and their families. So I'm sure the park they have to have normally more people than that because, that park is about 8 sizes bigger than Dollywood. It's much, much, much bigger. It's a huge park. Yeah, and they only had one restroom open. All the rest of them were roped off, closed.
Wow.
They had probably 5 places to get something to eat or drink open, and then maybe 10 or 15 of them closed. So it obviously was not the hugest traffic day that they had. So it's not like that they were overwhelmed with patrons and having to deal with all that. And the park had rented it to Toyota, so Toyota was kind of running the show. They were paying for everybody's drinks. They were doing all that. So I don't know. They didn't. So people weren't the normal people that were serving you didn't have to ring anything up. So it would seem like to me it would have been a lighter day for them, but I don't know.
Well, is it a lot of places are going to? Was it paperless inside there when you went in? Did you have to use a card to be able to buy something to eat or whatever?
You know what? I did use a card. I don't know. We ended up buying some food. Skyline Chili is what we ate at the place called Skyline Chili, but got some hot dogs and stuff like that. The drinks were free, but we did have to pay for the food, and we paid with a card. So, but I don't know. I didn't try to use cash. I had cash, but I didn't try to use it. So I don't know if it was cashless or not.
I know I had a friend there last weekend was Smokies up there in Kodak there. It was their last home game for the regular season there, and he goes, I went to go get a beer and some chicken or something the other there. He said, oh, we don't take cash. This is real money.
Yeah, real money. No, we don't take real money.
No, we don't want that. You'll have to use a card there.
Well, I did that. I went through a car wash, that new car wash in Oak Ridge down there near Illinois Avenue in the Turnpike.
Uh-huh.
I was down there, and I was just going to drive Tracy's car through, bring it home clean. I roll up, pick my car wash, and you actually, there's a person there at the window. And handed her a $20 bill, and she was like, we don't take cash. I was like, what? She said, we don't take cash. I was like, oh, okay. So I had to give her, but I was like, what? What's the world coming to? But
I don't know, but, if something happens, though, and the computers go down or something, or whatever,
Again, my house, cash is king.
Yeah.
Let's ask my kids. They won't take an IOU.
Yeah, no kidding there.
They want a $5 bill, well, a $20 bill for that matter.
Oh yeah, them $2 and $5 days are history.
Boy, you ain't kidding.
But yeah, I watched on the news last night and this morning both there. Somebody else had a problem. The nice looking semi-rig carrying the University of Tennessee's football equipment had a crash.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Oh, yes. I mean, it junked it out, too. They had part of the interstate blocked there for a long time while they were getting it cleaned up there. And of course, they laid up loading the trailer onto another truck or something there. But yeah, it looked like nobody was hurt, but yeah, the equipment there, I guess it's made it back to Knoxville by now.
Oh, wow. So it wreck's coming back?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
On the way back, yeah. No kidding there, but I watched the game there, and of course I enjoyed the game and stuff there, but I don't know. I just thought that Coach Heupel, after they had that lead, they just got real conservative.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think he was playing to hold the win as opposed to keep the gas on. And even the commentators were talking about it. In this particular environment, you're this much ahead. You're going to milk the clock, going to run.
I know that I was watching it on TV, of course, there, but
sure.
Kirk Herbstreit was one of the commentators, and he actually, man, he about blew a gasket there.
Boy, he did when the Oklahoma players kept acting like they were hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was proud of Kirk because usually he's not that big of a Tennessee boy, but he was.
Mm-hmm. He said, they got to do something about this. Them kids laying down there and acting like they're hurt just to slow the tempo down,
Yeah, well, we come up there on third down, and we smack them in the face, and we run up there, and he literally was standing there, and he looks to the sideline and just falls over. And Herbstreit, I loved it. Herbstreit says, it's not illegal, but it's certainly immoral, and Oklahoma should be better than that.
Yep.
And you know what, though? James David said, well, we've got a guy that does that. I said, no, we don't. He said, yeah, we do. I don't know if we really do or not. I don't recall us ever doing that. For one, I don't know anybody that plays that fast a tempo like us. Do you?
No.
So I don't think we have to do that. But I think James David was just aggravating me when he was saying it. But I don't think we do that. And if we do, we got to stop. I
don't remember us doing that.
Me neither.
I think that I'm trying to think back there. Didn't Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin pull that when we played them in Knoxville, too?
Yep. Oh, well, we've had a couple of different people do it to us. I mean, it's happened to us. It's happened about every game that I can remember, but not always. How you're going to, if you make the mistake and you accuse somebody of just doing it, and all of a sudden they really do have a, ACL, or they got something wrong. Yeah, you feel bad. The one that Herb Street talked about was not. And did you see the same guy did it again later in the game?
Sure did.
Same exact guy, same thing. And then they act like they're walking him. They had his arms around him until they get to the sideline. Then the two that are just split, and then he just walks over. He don't even sit down on the bench. Just walks around.
He's fine.
Yeah, he's fine when he gets to the sideline. So yeah, they do need to do something about that. But how do you do it? How do you know if he's really hurt or not?
Well, that's a tricky part right there.
But you know what? We beat them. Oklahoma's not all that. They want to come to the SEC. Come on to the SEC. You'll get beat some more. Georgia would dog whip them. Alabama would dog whip them.
And Tennessee could have.
Well, we could have. I think it was the first test for a lot of these guys, especially for our quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
And if you noticed, Holly, what's her name that was on the sideline, said it was 117 decibels of noise. The loudest that she had been in. Loudest she had been in prior to that, she said, was the Swamp at 115. So that was the loudest college football game she said they had that she had been in, or maybe she said, I don't think she said this year. I don't know what she said. I know she said that here's the loudest one. The loudest next to that was 115 that they had been in. I'm almost sure she said the Swamp.
I'm sure that it was loud there because I don't know. I know he's just a young quarterback, but he's got to be able to feel that pressure sometime coming from his backside or whatever because, he got it jarred loose twice from him there, and we ended up getting it right back. But yet, though, he's got to protect that ball a little bit better. But he's, like I say, he's young. He's talented. He'll get better.
Our defense, our defense
got something else.
They're good. They're good.
They are good. I was hoping they would. I don't know who they had in at the end of the game, but I was hoping they'd keep them out there. But I forget how many quarters it'd been since anybody scored on them.
19.
19 quarters. That's pretty stout.
That's good. 19 quarters, one touchdown in 20 quarters.
That's stout defense there. Of course, he better. Arkansas ought to be undefeated there. They give a couple of games away there, but they're going. That's going to be another tough test there in Fayetteville.
Yep, it will be. I don't know that it'll be as tough as Oklahoma, but it'll be tough.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, their schedule there. We still got Murder's Row left to come.
Yeah, we do. Speaking of which, Dragons don't have an easy task this weekend. Did you listen last weekend?
Yeah, I did there. It didn't go so well.
No, I mean, it was, I think, as expected. We could have played better, but again, it was Powell. They're a tremendous team.
Oh yeah, we were just basically outmanned.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yep. So and AC beat Powell, so that's not going to be that. We're going to have to be ready for that too.
Mm-hmm. I know when AC played them, their star running back was hurt.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
But they still were in that game for a long time. But AC seems like got a pretty good team again this year.
Yep, seems like.
We'll see what happens. We got to go to Blankenship next week.
Yes, we're going to Blankenship.
Oh boy.
So.
Well, they started out 0-2, but I think I think they've gotten it together since then. Put together a couple of wins. So it's not going to get any easier.
No, it's not.
Well, hopefully, Ron, I hope that you have air conditioning sometime today.
I just hope my ceiling don't fall through. It was wet. I had to drill holes in the ceiling to get the water to drain. That's how much water was in my attic.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if it happened right after you left, or if it's something that. Well, it's untelling how long it's been happening.
Yeah, well, yeah. It was probably happening before we left, just hadn't saturated enough to leak through the wood into the wall. But it was soaked, buddy.
Lord, there. How big was that drain line? Was it an inch and a half? Or
it's about the size of a hose.
Oh, okay then.
You know?
Yeah, well, that'd be easy enough to clog up, I guess, there.
Yeah, it's weird because I saw on TV they've got this new product that you hook to your air conditioner, and it puts some kind of chemical into that hose to keep it from building up. And I thought, I wonder if anybody even really needs that. That's silly. And then boom. Happened to me.
Yeah.
Murphy's Law.
Yep. What can happen will happen.
Yes, sir.
But I saw on somebody there, a couple of good friends of mine, Cheryl and Bobby Harris, they drove out there. They stopped somewhere, and Bobby got to take his picture with John Wayne there. I don't know if it was I can't remember if it was a statue or a picture, but she said, I believe he even had a tear in his eye there. He really loved the Duke there, and I messaged her a little bit later and said, I'm watching El Dorado right now. John Wayne and James Caan.
Yeah. I love it.
But anyway, I think they said, and somebody else that was at the game said that the Oklahoma people were really nice.
Yeah, I heard that too. Great hospitality, and that's good. I have a couple of friends that went out there. Same thing. They said it was great. And hang on a second for me, Mike. Somebody keeps trying to call. I'm going to put them on hold. Hang on one second.
Okay, then I'll get off here.
Well, all right. Well, that's fine, too.
Okay, I'll talk to you later, buddy.
See you, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good morning. Welcome to Ask Your Neighbor.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
Oh, I thought you was putting me on hold.
Well, no, Mike went ahead and he said he's going to wrap it up, Bob.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry there. Ron, I got two things there, and one thing about your air conditioner. I went through the same problem, just so happened mine ain't in the attic, but I know a lot of people is in the attic.
Well, part of mine is. It's a split unit, I reckon, because I got two units outside and then one in the attic.
I went downstairs there naturally, and I knew better, and I knew what I was supposed to do. You're supposed to put Clorox. That pipe, it comes out of your unit there.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing has got that drain there, and it's got a thing you just screw off there. On mine does, and you pour Clorox down in there.
Yep.
It's got a trap right down below that thing. Right?
Yes.
That allergy builds up in there.
Well, that's what happened.
And which naturally mine was not far from my air compressor. I had pulled a big holes in there and sort of blowed it out, which went out through the wall there,
Yeah.
And poured that Clorox in there. But when they put it in, they told me that memory. But you know how that goes, that through one ear and out there. And,
Yeah.
So just loosen this right here and pour your little Clorox in there so often you won't ever have no problem. But like I say, I went down there, and naturally my garage is full of water there. We hadn't been down there in a few days. It just happened all at once there at that time, So, but on that, and oh yeah, and another thing is that at the car washing place you went through.
Yeah.
I was going to go to a funeral there, and my car was pretty dirty. I just got that one little car here. Anyway, I said I was over there, and I said, "Heck, well, I'll just run it through here and clean it good, real quick, like
Mm-hmm.
I got there, and I'm the only one. I guess I was the first one or whatever. But anyway, there wasn't nobody else around. I just pulled up there, just like a big shot, brand new outfit over there,
Yeah.
And so I was real thrilled to get it run through there. Pulled up there, and I said, I want $10 worth of wash. That's what I did. I had my $10 bill in there. He said, I can't take your money. I said, you can't take my money? He said, no, sir, you got to have a credit card. And he said, now we can set you up on a monthly basis here and everything, and sign in, and you'll be all right, I said, well, I don't want it for a month. I just want it now, He said, I'm sorry. And I said, well, you just find me a way to get out of here.
Back me up, move me out.
Now, that happened to me there, and that's the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard of. Now, 20 years on down the road, it might come to that, Ron, but it ain't to that right now.
It's getting there, slowly but surely. I think that a lot of your stadiums and stuff like that are going to end up going cashless, where there's a lot of people, somebody told me they do that a lot to stop from anybody being able to steal from them. But I don't know. Somebody will figure out how to steal from them. I mean, they hack into credit cards all the time, so...
Well, I'm glad y'all had a good time up there anyway there, and wherever y'all went to. Whereabouts was that place at, Ron?
Up Cincinnati. It's just, 4 hours up the road, Cincinnati, Ohio, Kings Island.
Oh, Cincinnati, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Ron, you have a good day, and let somebody else get on here. And I appreciate listening to you, though, there, because I hate to hear all them problems you had there and everything, but that's just the way life is, and to drop your card down through the cracks.
It was just typical. There you go. Thank you, Bob.
But it rains, it pours, Ron.
Yes, it does.
Good to see you. Bye.
Bye. It rains on the good and bad alike, doesn't it? That's what the Lord said. The just and the unjust. Good morning. Welcome to Ask Your Neighbor on WYSH.
Yeah, there is a shortage of cash in the United States right now. You know what caused it?
Bundling it up on pallets and sending it to Iran.
Amen. That's it.
Well, we send $200 billion over there.
That's right.
In cash. There you go. Yep. That was, for the life of me, I don't know why former President Obama would. I have no idea why they did that. Cash. Bundles of cash on pallets. Yeah. Nobody's ever given me a bundle of cash. I'm trying to think of what the largest sum of cash I've ever had. It's not been that much. Not been nothing like that. Ask Your Neighbor, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Is this Ron?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. This goes along with what you guys were talking about the credit cards and cash.
Yes, ma'am.
But I wondered, are you watching Tulsa King by any chance?
I started watching that. I don't know. I started watching it in the first season, and I watched the first season, but I haven't watched any since.
Well, it's getting ready to start number 2, but I think right now you got to buy it if you want it.
Okay.
So I'm gonna wait.
Yes.
But anyway, he, had been in prison all that time.
Yes.
And he went to mail a package, and they told him, "We don't take cash. I'm sorry." So, he said the same thing you said. Cash is king.
Exactly.
Anyway, he turns around to the guy that's in there, and he says, "I left my credit card back at the motel. Could you mail this package for me?" The guy did it,
Yeah.
But gosh, I hope it ain't coming to that, because what about people that don't have a credit card?
I know.
What are you gonna do?
Well, I've been to multiple places that don't take cash. Tons of them. I mean, not tons of them, but I've been to a number of places that don't take cash.
Yeah. Well, I've got a credit card, and it's good for about $5,000, but I don't want to use it until I really need it,
Yep.
I don't want the payment.
No, and the interest rate is crazy. We use ours. What I do is we use ours through the month, and then we pay it off at the end of the month. And I do that because I accumulate points, and I can use those points every year and almost pay for Christmas with those points.
Oh.
Yeah. One year, I had to buy a bunch of stuff for the radio station one year, and I used it. And I accumulated about $2,500 in points, in money.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was Christmas plus. So
I keep telling my son he don't want to get one, but he's got one, but he don't want to use it.
Yeah, and I don't recommend using them unless you can pay it off,
Well, it could help him, though, if he goes to get a car or something.
Oh, yeah, it helps your credit. Definitely helps your credit.
Yeah.
So, but it's...
Anyway, I just wanted to tell you about that Tulsa King because it kind of sounded like I was watching.
I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
So...
It's a pretty cool show.
Yeah, it is. Oh, I love Sylvester Stallone. There are a few people in the world that I don't get starstruck. You know, the most starstruck I've ever been in my life is when I went to New York City, and it wasn't a person; it was the actual city. I felt like I've told this over and over, but I felt like that I was hanging out with a movie star because everything you saw, everything that I looked at, I had seen before all my life on television. You know what I mean? The Radio City Music Hall, the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty. I got to see where the Twin Towers were, the 9/11 Memorial, the stock market, you know, the big bull out at the stock market, all of the Trump Towers, all these things I'd seen all my life. And there I was, right in the middle of it. So it was like hanging out with a celebrity for 4 days. That's kind of what I felt like. That's the most starstruck. But there's very few people I wanted to meet. Sylvester Stallone is one of them. I would like to meet him.
And then he's funny in it. I mean, he's
oh yeah,
kind of funny. I didn't expect that, but especially when he gets that apricot preserves. I don't know if you saw that part.
I don't recall that.
Yeah, well, he's sitting there eating it like crazy, you know, and the guy tells him that it's loaded with marijuana.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he kind of chuckles, and he said, I was wondering why I was feeling so good.
No, I'll have to go back. Maybe I haven't seen all of the first season. I started watching it, though. I like it. I don't know why I haven't continued.
I think there's just 9 episodes.
Okay.
And I don't know of a channel you can watch it without commercials. That's what I would like. You know, CBS has commercials.
Okay. I think, wasn't it on, it's on Paramount or it's on Paramount, I think. I can't remember, but anyway.
Yeah, one of them said Prime Video, and okay. I don't know if I have that.
I'll tell you something else that's good if you get a chance to watch it. They did a reality show. Him and his wife and 3 daughters. And it's pretty funny. I can't remember. I think it's called the Sly Family. Sly. I can't remember what it's called, but it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you like Sylvester Stallone, you'd like it.
Yeah, I do.
I do too.
Okay.
Thank you, dear.
You have a good day, and I will talk again.
All right, ma'am. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yep. Sylvester Stallone, I would like to meet him. I would like to meet President Trump. I've been trying to, if he has a rally anywhere close, I've been trying to find a way to find somebody that, you know, they have meet and greets, but you usually have to give a big chunk of money, and I can't give a big chunk of money to do that. They have them. You know, I get stuff on my phone all the time. Make a donation. Come have dinner with me at Mar-a-Lago. Yeah. And they say you can make a $5 donation and you're entered or whatever. But anyway, I would like to meet President Trump. And when I say meet, I wish I could have a conversation with these guys, you know, like Sylvester Stallone. If you look up his life story, I mean, it's amazing the things that he accomplished with the adversity that he faced. You know, and they told, you know, he wrote Rocky and it didn't take him no time to write it. It came to him. He came up with the idea and he wrote the script. And he tried to sell the script. Finally got a movie company to buy it. They were going to buy it for $1 million. Now, again, he was dirt poor. He was so poor he had to give his dog away. He couldn't afford his dog. He loved, and now he went back and got his dog back after he got established. But that's how little that he had. He couldn't even take care of himself and a dog. And so the studio says they're going to give him $1 million. Now, what would you and me say? We'd have probably broke their arm. He said, okay, but he was to play the lead. That was it. He wrote the movie for himself to play the lead. They said no, they had somebody else in mind. I can't remember who it was. So he said, no, I won't sell it to you then. And he kept it. And I can't remember how many more years he drug on living hand to mouth. Sometimes I think he even lived out of his car until he finally got a studio to buy it. That would let him be the lead. And the rest is history. I'd like to meet him. Seems like a interesting guy. Very positive guy. And we've all heard it's not how hard you get hit, it's how hard you can get hit, get knocked down, and get back up. Not getting knocked down, it's getting back up. Quick break. In fact, I have got 2 minutes, and then I went, well, wait a minute. I was going to say, and I'll see if anybody else has anything to say, but they do. Evidently, I'll see right here, right now. Good morning. Welcome to Ask Your Neighbor on WYSH.
Good morning, Ron.
What's up, Nick?
Oh, you're talking about getting text messages from President Trump and marijuana and stuff. I get the same thing. Donate $5.
Yeah.
I get the exact same thing. Yeah. I come hang out, come meet me and JD Vance and all that stuff. $5 donation, $10 donation.
Yeah, if you make the donation and then your name goes into a pot, and we're going to draw a couple of people. So.
Yeah. So. I know. I'm right there with you.
They haven't drawn me yet.
Either.
Yeah. They say you don't have to give a donation to, be included, but they haven't included me yet.
Either.
Well, let me know if they do.
I will, Ron. I'm getting ready to email that thing to you too, and I got some else to email to you too.
All right, buddy. You send it.
All right, Ron. I'll send a New Life thing today, and maybe the other one. See, maybe Wednesday or Thursday.
Whenever you want to, pal.
All right, Ron.
See you, Nick.
See you. Bye.
Bye-bye. WYSH, Ask Your Neighbor. Good morning.
Yes, sir. What was the movie you were talking about? You were talking about this movie about a man and a dog? And I was wanting to know the name of the movie.
No, I wasn't talking about a movie. I was talking about Sylvester Stallone. You're talking about him giving up his dog and then getting it back when he was successful? Just now?
So that was Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, in his real life, when he was trying to get someone to make the movie Rocky, he wrote the script, but he was dirt poor, and he got where he was living in his car. He had to give up his dog. He couldn't feed his own dog, so he gave his dog to a guy. When he finally found a studio to make Rocky and let him be the lead, and he got a little money, the guy gave him his dog back. He got his dog back, but yeah, that's a true story about Sylvester Stallone.
Okay, I'm sorry. I missed that, but I was wanting to check that movie out. Okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Good morning. Welcome to Ask Your Neighbor.
Hey, good morning, Ron. It's Kurt.
Hey, Kurt. What's up, bud?
I was going to ask you, well, first of all, that movie, they told me, I think I'd heard it a long time ago when it came out. I was in the Army. I was in Germany when it came out. We were lucky. We got first runs on a lot of stuff. And so everybody was pumped up about Rocky, coming out of the movie theater.
Oh, yeah.
They come out a different person than they was when they went in.
Yes.
It was based on a real live person, by what I understood. The guy's name was Chuck Wepner, who got to fight Muhammad Ali.
Oh, really?
And his nickname was the Bayonne Bleeder, because he was real easily cut. He'd fought so many bad fights and got beat up and, won about half of them. And just a journeyman, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just small time. And that was what the inspiration supposedly was for that movie, is what I was told. So,
I had not heard that. What was the guy's name again? I want to look him up.
Chuck Wepner. Yeah.
Chuck Wepner.
He fought Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali would fight, the bum of the month kind of thing.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah.
And he wanted to give the guy a chance. So they got the idea the Apollo Creed character was based a lot on Muhammad Ali, as you could tell.
Yes.
Wow. Flamboyant, so.
I learned this from watching the, I can't remember, it's called Sly Family. I can't remember what the reality show is called, but he got the name Balboa from there's a street called Balboa Avenue. I think it's in Los Angeles. And he was like, in the reality show, they're driving down the road, and he's like, look, right there's where it came from, Balboa Avenue. That's where he got the name Rocky Balboa.
How about that?
Yeah.
Hey, I was going to ask you this. Who would you say the most well-known or most famous person that you actually had a chance to actually meet in a one-on-one? You know what I mean? Not going to some thing where they're sitting at a table meeting everybody. But who would you say? Had you met some pretty? Met some pretty good.
I've spent a lot of time with Garth Brooks. I got to sit down with Garth twice. Well, the second time I didn't get to sit down with him. We were standing on Neyland. We were standing at Neyland Stadium talking on the field. The first time, though, when he was at Thompson Bowling, I got to go backstage in the dressing room with him and Trish Yearwood. And we talked for about, 20, 30 minutes. You know, so I got to.
Well, he knows you. That's the thing. You know what's funny? I was up in Gatlinburg when I was a young man. I'd just gotten out of the Army, and I was riding my Harley up to work up there in the evenings, and I was working night shift just so I could see the entertainers that came in at the. It's at the top of the airport road up there on top. Back then, I forget what it was. Sheridan, I think, back then.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a real cool place, and they had Jerry Lee Lewis in there.
Oh, wow.
And I was supposed to be busting tables for tips. And I was spending very little time busting tables.
I got it.
You know, I was just in it for the enjoyment, you know.
Sure.
So I was like 50 feet away, kind of behind him playing piano, you know, over there off to the side where I couldn't be seen. But I got a kick out of him because the way he handled people so funny. And some woman kept requesting the song, and he said, listen, man, I'm going to play that song, but I ain't ready to play it right now, so why don't you just shut up and let me play what I want to play.
He was cantankerous.
He was, but he was kind of, you know, entertaining and humorous at the same time, and just incredibly talented. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'll tell you the one that I met, and it was in Gatlinburg also. I was there again. Went up there early and was waiting for a girl to get off of work that I was dating anyways. So I'm kind of an hour ahead of her getting off of work after I went to this daytime concert they had at Thing. It was a free concert, and it was a gospel concert. But you would never believe who it was doing it.
Who?
Dion DiMucci.
Dion, I've met Dion DiMucci. Yes, Dion. He is a gospel artist now. Yeah.
And so the thing about it is this, okay? I'm dressed up because I got a date, you know, with the girl after she gets off work. You know, I got my nice, you know, black dress pants and the pink shirt, which I would never do that again. I'm not wearing any ever again since then. But I was in my early 20s. Anyways, she was working, and I'm waiting outside, you know, just a block down or something, just kind of people watching, I guess. And here comes walking down the street the guy who just done the free concert, right?
Oh, wow.
And I knew all of his gospel songs.
Yeah.
If anybody ever wants to hear some really good music, Dion DiMucci, you know, I became a big fan in 1969, I guess, when he did Abraham, Martin, and John. That was like his departure from the doo-wop, you know?
Yes.
And I loved it. I mean, that was one of the songs they turn up in the car, and you just get chill bumps, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember that as a kid. I'm like, oh, gosh, what a great song, because it's got the harp in it and all this instrumentation, the organ. It's like a gospel song in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so he's been a hero of mine since I was little, you know, and here I am, a full-grown man, and I'm at his concert, and, of course, I'm 6'5", and they're doing songs that I know, and I'm clapping with them just like I'm a regular church member, just like we're at church.
Yeah.
And so he comes walking down the street with his teenage daughter, and he comes over to me. He saw me at the concert.
Oh, wow.
And it was all I could do. I almost did it, and I'm glad I didn't, but I almost looked at him and said, do you know who you are?
I love it. Love it. Love it.
It was one of those moments.
I got to meet and hang out with him when I was in Arizona. I went to work for KRDS first. Well, I worked for them the entire time I was there, and then I also worked for Buck Owens for the last 2 years I was there. But I worked for KRDS, and KRDS and KYMS were the two stations that we owned. One was in Los Angeles, one was in Phoenix. And those two stations were the very first radio stations ever in the United States that went to a 24-hour-a-day, all contemporary Christian music. Most Christian stations at that time had preachers and stuff like that because that's how they made their revenue, through that. So these two stations were the biggest Christian stations in the country. So every artist that did Christian music, gospel music.
You had Don Francisco, Andy Grant, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All of them. I've done concerts with all of them. Do you remember, what's his name? One name does, the Champion is called. Carmen, yes. Carmen. Oh, yeah. I bet I did. Well, my band that I managed, we went on tour with a lot of these guys. Stryper and
I remember them.
Yeah. Brian Duncan.
Fringe, but yeah, I remember.
Phil Keggy.
Phil Keggy was fantastic.
Amazing guitar player.
He could play any Beatles song that you want to hear.
He was amazing.
He could have been a Beatle, you know. I mean,
absolutely.
He was another guitar player. You know?
I did shows with him. We play. I got to hang out with a lot of artists that were big back then. A girl named Margaret Becker was real big. Sam Phillips was her name was Sam Phillips. Her real name, I can't remember what her real name was, but she went by Sam.
I remember when B.J. Thomas did his first gospel albums.
Yeah.
Boy, were they fantastic.
They were.
You know?
I never met him, but I've probably forgotten all of the artists that I got to meet because they would just come in, you know what I mean? They'd come in with a new album or whatever, and I may or may not be on the air, but if whoever was on the air, they'd come in, they'd interview them, and especially the one in Los Angeles, it was common. I only went over there every other month, but there was always.
You got paid for this?
Oh yeah. I was.
I would have done it for free.
I was on the air. I started midnight to 6 at KRDS on the air, and ended up being sales manager over the group that we had over Phoenix. And at this time, then we had purchased one up in Colorado. So we had one in Boulder, we had one in Phoenix, we had one in Los Angeles, we had one in Albuquerque and sold it, but I was sales manager over that, and that's when they took me off the air. I had moved over to do an afternoon drive and doing sales and sales manager, but when they put me over the group, they no longer wanted me on the air. And I said, I'm in radio because I like to talk. I sell advertising because I like to eat. So I need to keep being on the radio. And they gave me a choice. They said, you can do one or the other, but you can't do both. And I wouldn't make the choice. And so the vice president of the company literally fired me on the air, kept me a sales manager, which I made 10 times more money as sales manager than I did on the air.
But
I loved being on the air. I loved talking to these artists and being with them and playing the music.
That's a dream job for me back in the 80s.
Oh, it was amazing.
That's when I just gotten out of the Army, and I converted to Christianity when I was in the Army.
Yes, sir.
Pulling punch. My favorite groups. I went and bought every album available. The Imperials, you know.
Wow. Russ Taff. You remember Russ Taff, who was with the Imperials?
Russ Taff was phenomenal.
Yes. I did shows with him. He was awesome.
Yeah, and when he did his thing, I know he went through a hard life. He had a hard life, alcoholism and stuff later on.
Yes.
But boy, he is phenomenal. I know he does a lot with the Gazers and stuff now. But
let me tell you somebody that I met that you'll know, and I loved him. This is one of the guys. I can't believe I didn't say this when you first said it. Mylon Lefevre.
Oh gosh, yes. And
I hung out
from the Lefevre family, but yes, he was out there as far as some people were concerned. They're like he's radical, you know, but boy, his music was good.
Well, you know, he wrote music for Elvis. He wrote music for the Beatles. He ended up on drugs. He had that life. He was in that life. The Atlanta Rhythm section. That's Mylon.
Oh wow, didn't know that.
Yeah, listen to the Atlanta Rhythm.
I had a Billy Preston album that I got in the not the EM, the PX.
Yeah.
Because you could only get certain albums, and you know they'd get Billy Preston. Billy Preston was a phenomenal songwriter as far as not only a performer with the Beatles and a piano player deluxe, but he was a good writer. You know, a lot of people don't know this. He wrote the song that Joe Cocker had, You Are So Beautiful.
No, I didn't know Billy Preston wrote that.
He wrote that. Not only that, he wrote it to the Lord. He didn't write it to a girl. That's a fact.
Wow.
Look that up. It'll blow your mind.
That's amazing.
How good he was.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. I tell you,
and he had a cocaine issue, at one time. I mean, that seemed to go with the territory.
I was getting ready to say, it seems like in that industry, in all of the industry, there was a lot of drugs in the 80s. But Mylan, I'll tell you this. When we first, we got to tour with him. We got to go do a number of shows. So they tell us some of his band members were talking and goofing off, and I said to one of the guys, I said, he looks like Elvis. And they said, shut up. I was like, what? And they said, do not, under any circumstances, say that to him. I was like, why? And he said, because everyone does. And he won't put up with it from his own crew. And we were, we worked for him. We were the opening act, right? Yeah. So I couldn't help myself.
That's a big thing that's a heavy mantle to carry. Right?
So I wait, I don't know, 3 or 4 days later, and I said, Mylan? He said, yeah, Ron. He has a thick accent. He's like, yeah, Ron. I said, has anybody ever told you? And he said, don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't.
I said, I would never say you look like Elvis. He just shook his head. He laughed at me. But you know how he got me back? He hired our keyboard player away from our band and took him on tour with him.
There you go.
Ron Edwards.
Well, listen, brother, I've got to go. My battery's about to crash on this phone I'm talking to you.
See you, buddy.
Good talking to you.
Good talking to you. Bye-bye. I'd forgotten. I spent so many years out there. Here's another one for you, Kirk. Mark Farner, Grand Funk Railroad. He's also a Christian artist. Big guy that I spent a lot of time with. I can't. Petra. What's the lead singer of Petra? Used to be with Head East. Can't remember his name, but I'm sure there's write-ups and stuff that include me in those bands and out there somewhere on the internet. But yeah, KYMS, KRDS trendsetters, and I just happened, Lord just blessed me to be there. That was the craziest thing in the world, how all that happened. I'll tell you, why not? It's Monday. I don't have a guest. I had a crazy weekend, so I'm just going to chat for a while, if you all don't mind. Now, if you want me to hush, you just tell me to hush, and we'll get you some music on here or something that you like. So I'd been working in La Follette. As you guys know, I started in this business when I was 13, right? James David's doing it now at 14, which I'm so tickled to death. Don't tell him I'm tickled, but I'm tickled. I started doing very similar to what he's doing, shadowing somebody and learning. I learned 13, 14 years old at WLAF in La Follette, still there. Jim Freeman owns it, runs it, one of my great friend. I love him, do anything to help him. He's the same with me. I worked there from 13 until I graduated graduated high school. And then I went off to college, and even while I was at college, like if somebody didn't show up on the weekends or something, they'd call and say, hey, can you work next Saturday? So-and-so can't be here. Are you going to come in? I'd drive in and work. Well, at college, I took a job at WKPT, Kingsport. I worked at KPT while I was at college. And then I also worked at WETS, the college station, doing all this at the same time and trying to go to college. Needless to say, I wasn't very good at college. I was good at radio, or at least I like to talk. And I came back. I left school. I decided I'll tell you the truth. The truth was I was cocky. And I felt like I already knew everything there was to know about radio, and I was wasting my time taking psychology and philosophy and English and the stuff that they were trying to teach me in college that I just didn't give a flip about. I wanted to know about radio. My goal when I was in college, I was trying to buy a radio station at the age of 18. I am not joking. I tried to buy a radio station in Holly Hill, South Carolina, and almost got somebody to back the deal, but they didn't, and I didn't do it. But that was my goal. I knew what I wanted to do when I was a young man. So I left college, and I came back, and they hired me back immediately at WLAF and put me on mornings. So from 18 years, I guess I was 19 at that time, 19, 20, and I was about, I guess, 20. For those 2 years, I sold advertising and did the morning show at WLAF, and I did pretty good for a young man. I don't know, I was probably making $400 or $600 a week back then. I had a 1975 orange Corvette. I thought I was the cat's meow, my friends. I did. Making good money, loving what I do, had the car of my dreams. Life was good, right? But it's just like everything. There's always something right down the road. So I just decided one day, right? And we played music. I had a band. We were playing music. Anybody ever remember Legends, the bar Legends on the Knoxville Strip? And we played there a lot. And the band, we were trying to make it. And at that time, if you were playing rock music, which that's what we were, country went to Nashville, rock went to Los Angeles. So I just decided one day I was going to move. I decided I was going to go to Los Angeles. So I saved money. Do you know how much money I saved? And this is a lot of money for me then. I think it's a lot of money now. I saved $600. I remember I saved $600. My girlfriend, the girl that I was dating at the time, she saved and gave me her tip. She gave me like $32 or $35. I had $635 when I left. She gave me $35. And I decided I was going to Los Angeles. I just said, I'm going to go, I think I've done as much as I can do here in La Follette without buying the station. I would have tried to buy that, but. So I packed up. Well, I went to the U-Haul place. If you're from Campbell County, you remember Walt Campbell had a gas station right downtown in La Follette, and he was the U-Haul renter. Keith Campbell, he had three sons, Brian, Keith, and I can't remember the youngest one. But anyway, I was friends with both Brian and Keith. So I went down to their dad, and I said, hey, Mr. Campbell, I need to rent a U-Haul. He said, well, what do you need it for? I said, I'm going to move to Los Angeles, California. And he said, okay, all right. And I said, do you have like a thing that you can put on my car, a hitch? And he said, on a Corvette? And I said, yeah. And he said, no. I said, what do you mean? He said, you can't pull this trailer with that Corvette from here to California. He said, it's too low. It won't do it. You'll pull the transmission out of your car, son. I said, are you kidding me? He said, no, I'm not kidding you. Why would I? I want to rent you a trailer. I said, well, okay. So I drove down here to Clinton to see Al Coleman. Al was right down here in South Clinton. Still, I don't think he'd built the new building yet. I don't know. But I bought my Corvette from him, so I came in. And Al said, you ready to trade it for a new one? I said, no. I told him my situation, and he said, well, I've got just the car for you, Ron. He had a couple-year-old Buick Skylark. It was a box. It was a box shape, okay? Two-door, brown. The ugliest poop brown car you've ever seen. And it had this giant, fluffy, velour brown interior. I don't know, reminds you of a funeral home or something. And he said, I can trade you even for that, and that will get you to California. It's a newer car, blah, 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 low miles. I was like, well, okay. And so I got the ugly brown Buick Skylark. Ugliest car I've ever had in my life. And the air condition didn't work. And so I was able to pack everything I had into that car. It had a trunk and a back seat and a passenger seat, and it was just me. So I loaded it up, and here I went. I left out one morning. It was in January. It was right after my dad's birthday. Dad's birthday is December 27th, so it was that week. It was a Saturday morning. I got up early. Mom and Dad got up. We said our goodbyes, and I took off. It was dark. I took off driving. On my way. And I remember, I've told you guys this story before. I take off driving, it's dark. I go down, I'm headed down through Memphis, go down to Arkansas. And, you know, the sun comes up, it's beautiful, nice day. I get into Dallas, Texas by about, I don't know, 9, 10 o'clock at night, right? I'd been driving since like 5 o'clock in the morning. It's 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And I get into Dallas. I remember driving through Dallas, and there's traffic everywhere. That was the biggest city or anything I'd ever seen or driven in at the time. Well, I'd been to others, but I'd never driven. I'm driving through Dallas, and there's that big building with the green lights that, you know, I'd seen that on the TV show Dallas. You know, they'd show that before. So I was like, oh, that's cool. I've seen that before on TV. I'm driving. So you go through Oklahoma, all right? You go through Texas, and then you go through part of Oklahoma. And you cut down. I went 40, 30, 20, 10. That's what I drove. And I was in New Mexico. I probably didn't even know I was in New Mexico. But there didn't seem to be anything. And so there was a place to stop and eat. And it was just kind of on the side of the road, small little place, the way I remember it. It wasn't like pulling into like a Pilot gas station or nothing. It wasn't all lit up or anything. It was just a place on the side of the road. And by this time, it was way up in the morning. I don't know what time exactly that it was, but it was maybe 4 or 5. I'd been driving for a long time. Right, and the only time I'd stopped was to pee and to get gas, maybe to get a pop or something. I was headed. I was going. Had no idea where I was going, but I was going. I wanted to get there. I was going to get there. I was going to get a hotel. When I got to Los Angeles, get a hotel, get situated, find an apartment. You know, back then apartments, you could rent an apartment for $250 a month. It was expensive. That, you know, $300 a month was a nice apartment. So I knew I had a couple months rent. And you know what? Mom and Dad might have given me a little bit of money when I left. They might have given me a couple $100 too, because I know I had enough. I knew I had enough to be there for 2 months. I knew I had that much money. I could make it for 2 months. And I thought I can work something out in 2 months. Well, I go into this little place in Albuquerque, or in New Mexico. I don't know, it wasn't Albuquerque, but it was somewhere in New Mexico. And I go in. You know, it's almost like the diner on Alice. At least that's the way I remember it, right? I go in. I'm telling the waitress, I'm driving across the country, I'm doing this, blah, blah, blah. And I get breakfast. And when I walked out, it was like I was on Mars. I felt it hit me. Still makes me emotional today thinking about it, how it hit me so hard. I looked out. The last time I saw daylight was somewhere in Arkansas or Oklahoma before it got dark, right? Remember, this is winter, so it got dark early. So the last thing I saw looked almost like Tennessee. You know, doesn't look that much different in Arkansas or in Oklahoma. I mean, it's flat, but it's, you know, it's green, or it was. The last scenery that I saw was just normal, familiar scenery, like driving down the road like you do. I mean, when I walked out of that restaurant, the sun was just coming up. And when I tell you that it was the most brilliant colors I've ever seen, it was to that date. It was like a painting, a picture. There was a mesa, you know, like you see on Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner, right there, right? I mean, I could see it. It was right down. I mean, it was in my. I don't know how many miles away from me it was, but it looked like it was right on me. And the sun was coming up, and it was orange, and purple, and blue, and red, and desert, cactus, and mesas. I swear I thought I was in a Roadrunner cartoon. I just stood there in the door, dumbfounded. And I don't know how long the people behind me stood there before they said, excuse me. They're like, excuse me, can we get out? And I was like, oh, yeah. And then I just moved over to the side and just, it hit me. You are a long way from home. What are you doing? You're out here by yourself. We didn't have cell phones then. I had bought, and I still have it in my closet in my office. I bought one of those little, they called it an emergency CB radio. I think it only broadcast on channel 9. And you could plug it into your lighter, and you could stick a wire, a magnet on top of your car. I had that with me. It might have done other channels. I don't remember. But that's it. That was it communications-wise. That and payphones. But I stood there, and it just, something inside me said, go home. Look at this. And then something else inside me said, you think this is cool? Wait till you see what else is coming. And I just stood there and just, I can't even explain the emotion to you. I really can't. It was a combination of excitement and fear, accomplishment, and missing mom and dad and my brother. And, just everything hit me all at once. So I got in the car, got myself composed, and began to drive. So got up into the afternoon, I had gotten into Arizona. A friend of mine that I knew, he was married, and he and his wife had moved to Arizona, to Phoenix. And so when I knew I was going to Los Angeles, I called him, and I said, hey, I'm going to Los Angeles, and I think I'm going to drive through Arizona. We'll just ask him about stuff. He said, when you get to Phoenix, call me. All right. And he said, we can hang out for a little while, go have lunch or something. And I was like, okay. So by the time I got into Phoenix, and then I pulled into out there what's called a Circle K. All right. I've not seen them here very often, but I have seen some. So I pulled into that, and I'll never forget. Again, this is just, you talk about a new world. I get out of my car, and there's a payphone, and I go to get on the payphone, and when I go to get the payphone, these motorcycle guys come in, right? About 4 guys on motorcycles, big guys. Like a gang, motorcycle gang. They got off the motorcycle. They all were wearing guns. Some of them had guns on each side, like riding a horse, like a cowboy. Some of them just had one gun. One guy had a rifle on his bike, like they carry on a motorcycle. And they just got off, walked in the Circle K. I thought, are they going to rob it? That was normal out there at the time. They walked in with those guns, came out with Slurpees or whatever. Sat around just chit-chatting with each other. I'm on the phone. So I called my friend. His name was Jim Onks. He passed away since. His wife, Sandy, she lives in Texas now. She's a realtor. But I called Jim, and he asked me where I was, and I'm telling him the name of the street. He was like, okay, I know exactly where you're at. If you'll hang on, I'll come and get you. So he did. He came out and drove out and got me, and I followed him to his apartment. And by this time, it's up late afternoon, early evening. He says, let's get something to eat. So we three, me, him, and his wife, we went out. We got something to eat. And then they drove me around, kind of just showing me stuff. And he said, why don't you spend the night, spend the night here, get a fresh start in the morning, we'll have breakfast, and then you can head on into Los Angeles. Only a couple hours from here. I said, okay. So we do that. I'll never forget, I slept on their floor. They had a 1-bedroom apartment. I slept on their floor and their floor was wet. And I said, Jim, your floor's wet. He said, well, we shampooed the carpet, you know. I said, okay. So I ended up getting the cushions off the couch, putting them on the floor, sleeping on the floor. And got up the next morning, and he was like, hey, I want to show you something. Okay, so he turns the radio on, and there's this radio station, and it's playing contemporary Christian music. And he was like, listen to this. It sounds like normal music, except all the lyrics are Christian. Now, all of us that were in the band that I played in at the time, even though we were rowdy, all of us had been raised as Christians. All of us were Christians, had been saved, born again. Obviously, we weren't always living it, but we had been. So I'm sitting there listening to it, and I'm like, this is crazy. They're singing Christian lyrics to secular music, and it's cool. And he said, you should go to work for them. And I said, that would be cool. And so he told me, he's like, I've won like concert tickets and stuff. I know a guy that works there. So he calls a telephone number and says, hey, I got a friend in radio. And he hands me the phone. And I introduced myself. And I said, my name's Ron Meredith, and I just heard your station. I think it's amazing. I've never heard contemporary Christian music. The guy on the phone says, yeah, we're the first station ever to do it, ever. Guy's name was Mike Adams. And I said, I just was kidding around. I said, you don't happen to need anybody, do you? And he said, as a matter of fact, I do. Just about 20 minutes ago, my overnight guy quit. He's going into sales. Would you be interested in doing midnight to 6? I said, well, I don't know, maybe. And he said, well, can you come and see me? I said, yeah. When? He said, now. I said, I'll be there as soon as I can. I don't even know where I'm at. I'll have to get somebody to bring me. And he said, okay. And so my friend's wife drove me, she drove. I don't know if I drove and she rode, or if she drove and I rode. I don't remember, but we went over there. And I met the program director, whose name was Mike Adams, who was a legend in Christian music. In fact, he originally was from Oklahoma. And he interviewed me, and he gave me the job right then and said, can you start tonight at midnight? I said, yeah. He said, let's go back and look at the equipment. And I knew how to run all the equipment already. The board that they used, I was familiar with. The practices that they used and the radio clocks that they used and stuff, I had to learn, but that was not a big deal. So I went back and said, hey, guys, they gave me a job. Can I stay here for a few days and figure out what I'm going to do? And they said, well, yeah, you can stay. That's not a problem. So I went in that night, did my first shift, got an apartment in the same complex as they were in, and went to work. And I worked there. I worked there the entire time I was in Phoenix, and I'll never forget, they paid me $10 an hour. And minimum wage at the time, they paid me $8 an hour. And minimum wage at the time was $3.35. So, I thought I was in high cotton. I did not realize how much it took to live out there at the time. So I was making $8 an hour. I was talking on the radio, working 6 hours a night. I rented an apartment, and then money started to run out because the $8 an hour, 6 hours a day was not enough to feed me and keep me in an apartment. Also out there, you had to have your car registered, and you had to go through emissions. It was a lot different. And so I went and I asked the general manager if he would let me sell advertising, because I had done that at WLAF. And that's how, in the radio, unless you're a big disc jockey like a Howard Stern or something like that, you don't make a whole lot of money talking on the radio. Money is in sales. And so I went and I asked if I could sell advertising. And the general manager said no. I said, okay. So what I would do is every morning at 6 o'clock when I got off the air, I had a suit. I had one suit. Well, I had 2 or 3 jackets, but one suit. I would put on a suit or my jacket, and I would sit either outside on the steps or in the waiting room for him to come in. He came in usually about 7:45. I would also help the morning guy, who was the guy that hired me, Mike Adams. I'd do stuff, pull weather and stuff like that, traffic for him, give it to him. I wasn't getting paid, but I would wait on Gordon, his name was Gordon Marcy, to come in. And I would sit and I would say, Mr. Marcy, will you please reconsider and let me have a chance selling advertising? And he'd say, no, you don't have the experience. You know, this is a lot different than Podunk, Tennessee. He was very critical of my Southern upbringing and my boots and my accent. He didn't take to it very well. So I remember one day he told me, he said, things are different out here, Ron, and your Southern charm is not the way that you're going to be successful. Out here, people are hard. We do business, you know. You don't do business on a handshake out here. You sign contracts. You do this, you do that. And I remember telling him, I'll walk on my hands if I have to sell advertising, because I either have to sell advertising or I got to do something else, and I don't want to do anything else. I want to continue to be part of this. And he said no. I did that for 3 months. I met him every day for 3 months, and I asked him every day for 3 months. And I remember finally the guy that hired me, who was the program director. In radio, you've got a guy that's over what's on the air, and you've got a guy or a gal that's over what's the sales. Sometimes you have a guy or a gal that's over all the promotions, but you've got different things going on. So one day, the guy that's on the air, over all of the air talent, Mike Adams, goes to Marcy, Mr. Marcy, and says, why don't you give this kid a break? I've never met anybody that's this, you know, that's this persistent, and he's good on the air. People like him. And so I asked that next morning, and Mr. Marcy said, I'm going to give you an opportunity. He said, I will pay you 20% of anything you collect. You sell and collect. I will not give you a salary. I will not give you a car allowance. I will not give you anything. I'm not even going to give you a list. Because usually when they hire you, you have a list. There's a list of clients. Usually you're taking over somebody that's left and you get their list. He said, so you will start from the very bottom and work your way up if you're going to do this. I said, that's all I need. That's the only opportunity I need. He said, this is what we're going to do. He said, starting today, he said, you go in there. He took me into the sales office. He said, here's a cubicle. You can work right here, and this is what you're going to do. He said, for the next 2 weeks, Ron, you're going to pick the paper up when you get off the air. When they bring the newspaper to the radio station, because we had the paper delivered every day, you go get it. You go back into your cubby, and you cut out every single ad in that newspaper. I want you to do that for 2 weeks. That's what I want you to do. Nothing but that. And in 2 weeks, me and you are going to have a meeting. 2 weeks from today, me and you are going to have a meeting, and you're going to bring all those clippings with you. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put you together a list of people to go call on. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And I began to do it. And I did. And on the second day, at 12:10, it was lunchtime. I know that. I don't know the exact time, but it was lunchtime. I'll tell you how I remember it's lunchtime. The lady in the front office, her name was Loretta. she walks back to the sales office where I am and says, Ron, there's somebody on line 3 that would like to buy advertising. And I said, well, Gordon told me just to sit back here and cut these out. But I said, I'll take a message, you know. She said, okay. So she told him she was sending him back to the sales department. I picked the phone up, and I answered the phone, and it's a gentleman by the name of Mark. I can't remember his last name. He was from like Korea, so he had a very odd last name. I can't remember. Odd to me at the time. But he owned a company called One Way Recording Studios. And he says to me, and he kind of talked broken English, but he said, I need to buy some advertising. And I said, well, all the salespeople are at lunch. Now, remember, we didn't have cell phones. You couldn't just pick the cell phone up. Some people had them, but they were very expensive at the time. Nobody in our sales staff had them. I know that. So I said, they will be back, you know, probably 1:30, 1 o'clock, and I'll have somebody call you. And he said, I've called 3 radio stations, and nobody will come out and see me. I would like to buy some advertising. I'm getting ready to get on a plane and leave. He was going back. He was going somewhere far away, and he wasn't going to be back for like 9 days. And he said, I need to get this. I want this on the air now. If you can't, I'll call somebody else. And I said, well, where are you? Well, it just so happened he was 2 blocks away from me. If he had been further away, I couldn't have probably figured it out, because even though I'd been there for 3 months, I still didn't know my way around. We didn't have GPS. I went everywhere with a map. So he was literally, I pulled out of the radio station parking lot. I turned right, and I turned right again and went 2 blocks, and there he was. So I said, nope, you don't have to worry, sir. I'm your Huckleberry. I'll be there in a minute, and I'll take care of it. And I walked in. I met him. He told me what he wanted, why he wanted to record, what he wanted on his ad. I said, I'll take care of it. And he paid me $900 cash money. We signed a contract, did it right there. He paid for it. I wrote paid on the contract. Our contracts were in triplicate. I kept the top one. He got the bottom one. The middle one went to traffic so they could put it all in, the systems at the time. And I was so proud of myself. Holy cow. I got back to the station. Now, this didn't take more than about 30, 40 minutes. So a couple of salespeople were there. One of them was for sure, but they all hadn't got back yet. And there was all a bunch of attaboys and way to go. That's fantastic. And I walked in, and Mr. Marcy, the general manager, was not back yet. He's still at lunch. So I put the copy of the contract on his desk, and I fanned those $100 bills out on it. And I just went back to my cubby and waited. I was excited. I heard the door, bing! We had a little ding when somebody came in the door like I do here. I knew it was him. I was back in the sales office. I was all smiles and giggles and happy. For one, I just made almost $200. That's a lot of money back then to me, because I got paid 20% on what I collected. And here he comes back, and he leans over the cubicle, puts his arm up and leans over the cubicle. And he says, I guess I ought to congratulate you for drawing first blood. I said, well, thank you. Thank you very much. And he said, now that I've congratulated you, I need to explain to you how things work. I told you to sit here and cut out ads. I didn't tell you to go sell anything. He said, so what makes you think you can disobey the rules that I've given you and shortcut and go start selling advertising? I said, well, I didn't think that, sir. There was nobody here. And the guy said we would lose the sale. And he said, then you should have let him walk away and lost the sale. I said, and let the station lose the money? He said, and let the station lose the money. And I said, whoa. I'm sorry, I would have never thought to do that. I would have thought to do, And he said, that's exactly why you don't need to be in sales. I said, okay, are you firing me? And he said, no, I'm not firing you, but I'm not going to pay you this commission. I'm going to keep it. And he said, and you're going to finish cutting out ads and doing what I told you to do. I said, okay. So I went along my business, and I did what he told me to do, and then I went into sales, and everything all worked out. Everything, until one day, there was a Ford store out in Phoenix that nobody could get to buy advertising. The guy's name that handled the advertising was Richard Sanderson. I had long hair back then. And everybody had tried to get this guy to buy advertising from us, and he wouldn't. And he was a big you talk to anybody in the 80s, car dealers and radio, that was the big fish to fry, because that's where you made your bread and butter. We were a Christian radio station. It was really hard to get people to buy us, because a lot of times Christians didn't like us because we sounded secular like the world, and the world didn't like us because we were Christian. So it was a very narrow audience, very hard to sell at first. So I met with Richard. He gave me a meeting. And we got along good. And he said to me, I'll never forget this. He said, son, if you were serious about selling me advertising or about being in business, you would cut your hair. Because nobody's going to take you seriously, you walking around here trying to look like you're a rock star and then come in here and want me to invest my time and money with you. So he said, if you want my business, cut your hair. And I said, okay, I'll do that. I got up, I walked out. It's funny how God works in your life, because there was just right down the road, there's a strip mall. I walked into that strip mall. There was a place called Styles from Above, a guy named Dan Gillum. That was his name. I said, I need a haircut. And he said, well, what do you want done? I said, I want you to cut my hair. Cut it short. And he cut it to the way you see it right now. And, hello, Mike Farley. How are you doing, Mike Farley, I'm good. I'm telling my stories. So he did. He cut my hair. Thank you. You're welcome, pal. And, hang on here a second, folks. I thought Jasper's here. Let me grab his phone real quick and play commercial and I'll finish my story. Hang on.
When you have a wreck, a good day can become a bad day in a hurry. But when it's time to get that car towed away, there is a number you need to know. 865-457-6927. Lowe's Tows. Did you know they work with all insurance agencies and body shops? And they can assist you throughout the whole process. Call 865-457-6927. If you need a tow, you need Lowe's Tows. 865-457-6927. They're locally owned and operated. They will tow anything, anywhere, from a Volkswagen to a semi-truck, from across the street to across the state. The stress of having a wreck is bad enough, so call Lowe's Tows, and that's one less thing you have to worry about. 614 Clinch Avenue in Clinton. Call 865-457-6927 or find them on Facebook at Lowe's Tows.
All right. I'll finish this. I'll finish this and I'll hush. Look at this. I just looked up and found out what time it was. So I said to Dan, I said, I need you to cut my hair. He said, how short? I said, business short, And he cut it like this. And I got in my car and I drove back over to the Ford store and I walked in and Mr. Sanderson didn't recognize me. Richard didn't recognize me at first. And then he did. And he said, anybody that'll go do that, you earn my business. And so he bought advertising from me. We had to fill out all the paperwork. He bought it. Again, I was extremely excited. And you go back, you remember I told you that a bunch of people had went to him and tried to get him on and were unsuccessful? At the time, we had like 9 salespeople, I think. And all of them, everybody, had tried to get him on, including the gentleman that was my boss, the manager, Gordon Marcy. And I by this time, I've been selling a little bit of advertising. I wasn't setting the woods on fire, but I was selling some. But this was a big deal. Big deal. Probably the biggest client the station had. Because he was a huge advertiser on other radio stations and TV, and for our station to be what it was, to break in and be able to get him on was a big deal. And I don't know why in the beginning Mr. Marcy did not like me, but he didn't. I came in with that contract, and everybody was excited, except for him, who told me, that's my client. And I said, Gordon, nobody's ever had him on the radio. I mean, everybody has talked about him. Like, first of all, when I walked in, people were like, well, you cut your hair. Remember, I was playing music out there. I was in bands out there doing the same thing, too. We were just doing contemporary Christian music. So that's what I looked like. I looked like you looked when you played rock music in the 80s. But when I walked back in, I looked like I do now. And that was one thing. And then I told the story, and the staff was like, oh, my gosh. And everybody was high-fiving except Mr. Marcy. And Gordon said, that's my client, and I'm keeping the commission. You're not getting it. And I said, no, sir, that's not right. That's not fair. Even at the time, the sales manager, whose name was Keith Passon, said, Gordon, that's not right. He went out and worked for it. And he said, I don't care what he did for it. It's my client, and I'm keeping the commission. And everybody in the building was like, wow. And so I didn't smart off. I mean, I was full of myself back then, but I wasn't so full of myself that I wanted to lose what job I had left. But that evening, I looked up the man that owned the company. His name is Paul Toberty. Paul Toberty was a land developer in Los Angeles. And Paul Toberty had ended up with the radio stations because he had built a building for a radio company to put their station in, and they ended up, they couldn't pay him for it, and he ended up, the payment they gave him, he ended up with their radio stations. I don't know how, but he ended up with them. He was not a radio guy, he was a land developer, and he ended up with the radio stations. So I just picked the phone up one day and called him and said, Mr. Toberty, and I told him who I was. I told him I was new, and I said, I'm not tattling on anybody, but if I owned a company, I would want to know about this. And I told him about the first sale where he told me he would rather the station lose the money than me to go and sell. And then I told him about getting the Ford store on, getting Richard Sanderson to sign a deal. And even Mr. Toberty knew what a big deal that was. And he said, Ron, thanks for telling me. Have a good day, sir. He didn't, reprimand me, or he didn't high-five me. He's like, well, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your concern, and thank you for telling me, and have a good day. Okay. Now, I'm still working midnight to 6, right? And then I'd put on my suit, and I'd hit the floor running at daylight whenever stuff opened, and I'd sell until I got so tired I had to go home, sleep, come back in at midnight. So I'm off the air. I'm sitting back in the sales cubby at about 7 a.m. and I hear bing, and the door opens. I hear something, and I walk in. There's two gentlemen standing there, and I said, can I help you? And the guy says, what's your name, son? And I said, my name's Ron Meredith, sir. I stuck my hand out. And he stuck his hand out, and he said, my name's Dave Armstrong. This is Paul Toberty. Mr. Toberty owns the company. And Mr. Toberty shook my hand. He said, I believe we had a conversation yesterday, didn't we? I said, yes, sir. And he said, well, I wanted to come meet you. Dave Armstrong is the president. He runs the radio stations for me. And I thought, uh-oh, I am in so much trouble. And he pulled out some keys, and he unlocked Gordon's office. And he said, come in here. And he went and sat down behind Gordon's desk. He said, I want you to tell Mr. Armstrong what you told me on the phone. And so I did. And he said, all right, Ron, thank you very much. We appreciate it. It's very nice meeting you. Have a good day. Basically, he's telling me, get out, you're dismissed. So by this time, it didn't take long. By this time, it might have been 8 o'clock or so, maybe not, I don't know. Gordon wasn't there yet, I know that. So I went back to the sales office. People start filing in, and then Gordon comes in, Mr. Marcy. And I don't know what happened. He walked in, they were in his office. I don't know what happened then. All I know is this. About an hour later, Mr. Marcy comes out and leaves. And Mr. Toberty and Mr. Armstrong come out and ask everybody that was there to come into the lobby and said, we have parted ways with Gordon Marcy. And they named Keith Passon, who was the sales manager at the time, interim station manager, and asked me if I would consider being the station sales manager. And I was like, excuse me? And they said, would you like to try your hand at it? And I said, well, yeah, I would love to. And that's how I started in the sales management, running people, working with people, was through that incident. And we took that station. The day that happened, that radio station was making $18,000 a month. And the day that I left that radio station, it was making $96,000 a month. That's the truth, the true story. That's how I ended up. I don't know how I don't know why I got, I started with the stuff that happened over the weekend. But that's part of the story of how I ended up in this crazy business. And to be able to get to where I am today, there came a point after they made me sales manager that we were growing so quickly, right? We ended up buying an FM station in Wickenburg, Arizona, and moving it to Phoenix. So at one point, we had station in New Mexico, station in Colorado, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and now we had bought this new one. And when they bought the new one, that's when they really started putting pressure on me. They had moved me from overnights to afternoons. And what I would do is I would get up, I'd come in the morning, and I would work until 3 in the afternoon on sales, and then I would go on the afternoon show. I was kind of like Ed Brantley was to WIVK for so many years, except out there in Christian radio. And our stations had taken off, so we were meeting all these artists and people coming in. We were doing very successful. But that's when they came to me and said, you've got to make a decision because, you know, we want you to do more in sales. And I said, well, how much more do you want? I mean, look what we're doing. They said, we want all we can get. And we believe we can get more by taking you off the radio and having you sell. I said, even if I sell, 5 o'clock, that's just 2 extra hours. I was on the air 3 to 7. I said, how about this? How about just let me on the air from 5 to 7? No. I said, okay. I said, I'm not going to quit either one of them. I'm not making that decision. I'm not doing it. I want to be on the air. And they said, well, if we make the decision to leave you on the air, we'll take you off of sales. And I did say, well, that would be stupid because I've done pretty good here. I'm not only the top salesman, but I'm also the sales manager. And, why would you do that when I'm doing good? So they made the decision, and they fired me on the air. They kept me on sales. I still worked for the company, but they took me off the air. They told the program director, and we had a new one. Mr. Adams had left, and now a gentleman named Rich Woodruff was the program director. And they said, Rich, you need to find somebody for afternoon drive. Mr. Meredith is no longer allowed to be on the radio. And I was devastated. I was making money, and I was making good money. But I love radio because I love interacting with you guys, with friends and people. I love sales because you get to do the same thing, but it's business, you know? Me and you aren't doing business. We're talking. You know, when Mike calls, me and Mike aren't doing business. We're talking. You know, sales is business, and I like that too, and I do okay with that. But I love people, and I'm kind of a ham. I like entertaining. So I didn't know what I was going to do. I couldn't quit sales. And so about the third day that I wasn't on the air, phone rings at the radio station. Loretta says, you got a call on line 1. And I picked the phone up, and it's a gentleman by the name of R.J. Curtis. I knew the name immediately. R.J. Curtis was the program director at the largest radio station in the United States of America, the biggest radio station in the history of our country when it come to listeners and revenue. It was owned by Buck Owens. R.J. worked for Buck. It was called KNIX. It's still there today, Tempe, Arizona, just off the campus of ASU. And R.J. says, he said, I called the radio station asking why you were no longer employed there, and they told me that you were just off the air. And I said, yes, sir. How did you know that? He said, oh, I listen. He said, I listen to all the stations around town. He said, but I like what you guys are doing or trying to do. And he said, I listen, and I noticed that you weren't there. And I noticed nobody was saying anything about it, which usually means you're fired. And so I briefly told him the story that they'd moved me into sales, and he said, would you like to be back on the air? I said, yeah. He said, I've got a weekend position open. Would you like to do it? I said, I would love to. He said, will they let you do it? I said, I don't know, but I'm not going to ask. I'll say I'm sorry, but I'm not going to ask. I said, I know I can't sell advertising for you or anything like that, but I could come be on the weekends. He said, change your name so they won't know it's you. I said, no, I'm not going to change my name. I'm just going to, I'll come and do it. I'll take my lumps if I get in trouble, I'll get in trouble. I'll have to quit. So that's how I went to work for Buck Owens. I started working for him while I was the sales manager for KRDS, KYMS. By this time, and somewhere in the midst there, once we got the FM into Phoenix, they sold Albuquerque, and then we sold Colorado, sold Denver. I said Boulder earlier, it was in Denver. They sold those two, so it was just I'd go between Phoenix and Los Angeles. And I remember my program director came to me about a month later, and he said, did I hear you on the radio on KNIX? And I said, yes, sir. He said, how did that happen? And I told him. He said, well, that's cool. I said, so you're not mad? He goes, no, I'm not mad. He said, there's no competition between us, what we do and what they do. And so he let me remain on there. And I was there. I got to be part of a lot of stuff there. I didn't get to meet a lot of artists. They would come in, but not very, very, very seldom on the weekends. But I'll never forget the first day I went there, and they hired me. They gave me a Honeywell card, size of a credit card, much thicker. And I'd never seen anything like this. That's how their doors opened and closed. Now, again, this was 1980-something. Early 80s, and their building was all glass, and it was 3 stories for 2 radio stations. There was an AM and an FM. I'm running like 4 of them out of this little bitty building here. They had CMA awards and a lot of Buck Owens' music awards and all. They had a trophy room. They also had a store inside there where you could buy KNIX swag. You could buy it. And I was awe-stricken. Well, I went to work for them. And that's how that happened. Every bit of it. So, and I decided I was going to buy a radio station. I kept selling advertising, kept doing what I was doing, kept working as hard as I could work. I saved a bunch of money. I didn't save a bunch of money. I saved some money. Hang on, let me see if this is somebody on the air. WYSH, can I help you?
Yes, I was calling for Ron Meredith.
Okay, you'll have to call back in about 30 minutes, okay?
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So, I was saving money, working, wanted to buy a radio station so bad, everybody knew it. MTV had a contest. Some of you are going to remember this. They gave away a radio station. They were giving away a radio station in Georgia. Do you guys, anybody remember this? I'll never forget, I was filling out the cards, and the guy that was over on the air at KRDS, Rich Woodruff, he walked in one day, and he said, "What are you doing?" I was sitting at my desk, and I was filling out cards, and I was folding the edges. And he said, actually, I wasn't folding it. I was just filling out the cards. And he said, "Hey, fold the edge." I was like, "What?" He said, "Fold the edge." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because when they reach in, it's more likely they'll pick something that is folded or whatever than just a piece of paper. Because all you did is you wrote your name, your address on the card, and their address on the card, and they drew it. And so I'm sitting there filling out cards, folding the edges, filling out cards, folding the edges, filling out cards. And Mr. Armstrong, who was the general manager of all of our company, was there that day, and I'll never forget. He came in and he said, "What are you doing, Ron?" And I said, "Trying to win a radio station." He said, "Where?" And I said, "Georgia, little bitty AM." And he said, "Why would you want it?" I said, "Why would I want it? I want to own my own radio station." He said, "In some little podunk town of 10,000 people, Georgia, why?" I said, "Well, I'm from Tennessee, and I said, I don't care where it's at. I'd just like to own one." And he said, "Carry on," but he dismissed it. You remember I told you that we had bought that FM station in Wickenburg? Well, it had an AM station with it, too. And there was a group that had been renting that AM station from us when we bought it, and they decided they didn't want it anymore, so our company decided that they would sell it. And they were going to sell it for $45,000. And I said, "I'll buy it. I'll buy it. I'll take it." And they wouldn't sell it to me. They said, "No, we're not going to sell it to you." I said, "Why?" They said, "Well, we don't want you leaving here to go sell advertising there. We don't want you as our competition." I think I'd probably even signed a non-compete. And so they wouldn't sell it to me, which bothered me. But again, Lord works in mysterious ways, because I wouldn't have been here if they had. So I fly home from Christmas, and I had called a broker, Doyle Haddon, still a broker today. And I told him who it was, how old it was. I wanted to buy a radio station. I flew home for Christmas, and I went and I visited, I think, 6 radio stations. I went in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee. And I took 2 days and drove and met these stations. They were for sale, met these station owners that were selling. And the one that I looked at in Georgia was in Brunswick, Georgia. And that was the one I was going to buy. I'm here for Christmas. Christmas was over. It was just after Christmas. I was here for one more week. I had 2 weeks off. And I drove back to La Follette, back to Mom and Dad's house. And I went to First National Bank in La Follette. Mike Smithers was the president of the bank. And I walked in, and I'd had an account with them since I was a kid. I mean, they'd financed my cars and everything else, so they knew me. And my Aunt Brenda worked there forever. She was still working there. She was a teller. She retired from there. So, again, everybody knew me. And I told Mr. Smithers, I said, "I want to buy a radio station." And he said, "Okay." And he said, "Here's how much money we can loan you based on what you have, depending on what you find." I said, "Well, I've already found it. It's in Georgia." And he says, we can't loan money in Georgia, Ron. We can only loan in the state of Tennessee. But my brother is the manager of a bank in Georgia. Let me call him. Maybe I can set something up. You can meet with him, and they can finance you. Great, I said. So I'm sitting there while he's trying to get a hold of his brother, and a friend of mine from high school walks in and says, "Hey, what are you doing here? I thought you lived in California or something." I said, "Well, I do. I live in Phoenix." He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm trying to buy a radio station." He said, "Are you buying WLAF?" I said, "No, but is it for sale? Because I would. Man, that would have been a dream. Come home and buy the radio station right there at the house. Already knew everybody. Everybody knew me." He said, "Yeah, WLAF is for sale, Ron." So I told Mike, I said, "I'm going to run up here and check this out." And he said, "Yeah, do that. We can help you with that." Any of you all that know La Follette, where First National Bank sits, if you walk out on Main Street and look, you can see WLAF radio. It's right, just, I guess that's to the north. And so I drove up there and went in, and Bill Waddell was my boss back then. And Jerry Mundy was there. And anyway, I walked in and I said, you don't talk about selling a radio station in front of anybody. You just don't, because you don't want, if somebody hears the radio station's for sale, they immediately start looking for a job. They leave you. So I said, "Hey, Bill, can I talk to you?" And so we went in his office and I said, are you guys selling this? And he said, "No, where'd you hear that?" And I told him. He said, "No, we're not selling WLAF." He said, "But I got a partner that owns part of a station in Clinton." And I said, "WYSH?" Because I knew WYSH. He said, "Yeah." Well, Jim owned, I think, 25% or 20% of this company. It was their company. George Perky, George Girton, Keith Perky, Jim, and another guy all owned a piece of it, and Jim ran this one. And they had sold it to somebody in Alabama who had defaulted, and they had taken back the AM, and they had sold the FM to the people that have it now, 95.3. And Jim and the company ended up with this AM back, and they were running it. And so he said, they're going to sell that. And they drove me down here on a Sunday. This was on Saturday. He said, "We'll go down tomorrow and look at it after church." So after church, I came down here. The bank had told me kind of what they could loan me, what I needed to do. And I walked in and met Mr. Stayer. He showed me around the building, and we went in his office, made him an offer. And he took it. And I bought the radio station right then and there. I mean, we didn't do the transaction then and there, but that's where it happened. Went home being Phoenix, and said, well, I owned a house now. I had a house out there. Had a life, had all kinds of stuff. I didn't know what I was going to do to sell a house. The market, was crazy then. The guy that cut my hair, Dan Gillum, who owned the place that got me the Ford contract, heard me talking on the radio just like I am now one day on KNIX, because I said, "I'm buying a radio station, folks. I'm only going to be with you a few more weeks, and I'm headed back to the South." And so he called and he said, "What are you going to do? Are you selling your house? Are you keeping it? What?" And I said, "Oh, no, I want to sell it. It's for sale." He said, and I didn't have it through a realtor. I don't know why. I just had it for sale by owner. He bought my house. And I had at that time what you call an assumable loan. So without anything, he was able to assume my loan. He gave me, I can't remember, $10,000 and assumed my loan. And I took that money and the money I'd saved. I packed a Toyota pickup truck. I had a dog named Wolf. I bought a camper top for it, stuffed it full of everything. I sold every piece of furniture I had. I sold everything I had. Brought my clothes and my dog and bought this radio station. And in 1990, moved upstairs. And the rest is history. Are you bored yet? I don't know how I got into that long of a story. And I apologize. Everybody everybody is probably gone by now anyway, so no one to apologize to. But that's how it happened. That's the long and the short of it. That's how it happened. That's how we ended up here, and that's it. So there you go. A long Ask Your Neighbor, and and not one time did we mention the schools or controversy. Now I'm going to wrap it up, Brad. Have a fantastic day, guys. Thanks for letting me blather on. Tomorrow, I got a really good show for you tomorrow. County Clerk Rex Lynch, or Court Clerk Rex Lynch, is going to be with us. And he's going to have some really interesting things to talk about, not just about what he does in general, but about this murder trial, sequestering the jury, and everything that we had to go through as a county. He had to go through as clerk to make sure that all stayed secure. It should be really fun and really interesting, and I hope that you'll join us. I promise I won't blather. It'll be give me another 10, 15 years before I take off and do another run like this where I blather on this long. But thank you kindly for hanging out with me and listening in, tuning in, dialing up, and enjoy your day.
Thank you for listening to AM 1380 WYSH and Ask Your Neighbor. Make sure you tune in at 10 a.m. each day, Monday through Friday, right here